What is the most controversial thing you own?
I have an old Iraqi bill with Saddam Hussein's face on it. It's worth about 17 cents according to Google.
People bought a bunch of Iraqi money after he was gone thinking it would be worth money one day. Don't think that worked out very well.
My grandfather went to the World Scout Jamboree in the Netherlands in 1937, and while he was there he traded patches and gear with some scouts from Germany. By 1937, the German Boy Scouts had transitioned into the Hitler Youth, so I own a Hitler Youth Boy Scout uniform with a bunch of swastikas on it.
A complete ivory and ebony chessboard bought a sale of confiscated poacher stuff to fund elephant preservation. When I lived in Zambia and was on holiday in Kenya. My dad bought it and I got it as a hand-me-down. We were friends with someone who owned an animal sanctuary and their security had shot the poachers as far as I remember. They had a parentless baby hippo as well. It stole my sister's chewing gum and tried eating their cat. It was moved further away from the main houses after it tipped over their Land Cruiser.
When I was 18, I bought a print of a 1918 German zoo advertisement from a thrift store. I thought the artwork was neat. It had a leopard on it and I was completely cat-obsessed at the time. Turns out the artwork was by Ludwig Holwein. He would go on to produce Nazi propaganda.
Till the cute leopard poster I have hanging in my hall was designed by a Nazi. Coincidentally, I ordered it from a Berlin atelier. I wanted a chinchilla really badly as a kid, but my parents said hell no. One Christmas my grandma got me a teddy bear made out of Chinchilla fur. Luckily my parents told me it didn't hurt the chinchilla, it's just like getting a haircut for them, but they were like WTF to my grandma. I now know better and am also like WTF grandma.
My family owns a petrified walrus penis. My grandmother took it to get it identified at the Smithsonian several decades ago. Apparently her grandfather, or maybe it was her great-grandfather, brought it home after he spent several years on some type of expedition up around northern Alaska and points north. It has been loaned out to several museums at different times. The family has talked about selling it, but everyone has to agree, and so far there is no agreement about selling it. So I own 1/67th of a petrified walrus penis.
67th? Just the tip, I guess?
An uncut DVD of Caligula. I am not sure if it is still banned or not.
I was happy a certain character in this movie died. Lol. It was made well, but it is not for everyone.
Coney 2012 kit. It's a whole thing and I don't want to talk about it.
LMAO, what a time to be alive that was.
An ornate, boar tobacco jar from the 1800s. My great-grandfather looted it off a dead militiaman during the Second Boer War.
A first print edition of Batman Damned #1, the one featuring Batman's Little Batman. From DC Black Label, featuring more adult content. Violence and swearing are totally fine, but a shadowy penis profile made people flip out enough they removed it from subsequent print runs. You guys are some creative effing people with your bat penis puns. Love it.
They showed Bruce's Wayne.
I have a glass vial, small bottle of pure histamine. If anyone would be exposed to this, they would get a deadly allergic reaction. I have it double sealed.
I have a few ivory jewelry pieces from the early 70s my parents brought back from Botswana, and a poison arrow kit. Mum has the 3-meter-long python skin she just put in her luggage from back then too.
My dad has a tiny elephant carved from ivory. I always found it pretty disturbing. I believe it was a present, though I DK who gave it to him or where they got it.
My great-grandpa was a medic in WW2 and we own a little chest with his personal belongings, including his diary, some old bandages, and 3 vials of 1940s morphine.
My 26.5 scale 8-string guitar is apparently super controversial to every guitarist I've ever shown it to.
Your friends don't DJ ENT. Also, if one of the high strings break, it's likely to, the opening scene from Ghost Ship, maybe hurt someone. LMAO.
Mortuary toe tags from an asylum in New York, like 20 or so of them. I think they could be the only things left showing that these people actually lived.
That's pretty sad.
Troll dolls were very big in the early 90s. I have a Confederate soldier troll doll in full uniform with flag in hand. Thanks, Dad.
An original copy of Mao's Red Book from when they were distributed in China back in the 60s. Also a copy of Mein Kampf, but I'm not sure about this copy's backstory.
5 grams of uranium metal, stored under oil in a glass vial.
Probably my favorite Amazon review of uranium. I purchased this product 4.47 billion years ago, and when I opened it today, it was half empty.
I have my grandfather's Hitler Youth knife. He was 12 when the war ended, but he spent the last year or so of the war on a U-boat, basically as an assistant. Edit. This comment blew up and I wanted to give some background. My grandfather was taken to a camp after the war ended for re-education and denazification. He was shown films of the concentration camps and other atrocities and quickly denounced Nazism. He met my grandmother in Germany and they immigrated to the US in the 1950s and raised a family. Once I reached adulthood, I became kind of a history buff and began asking him about his experiences. He told me some stories and gave me the knife. I keep it now as a historical artifact that I have a direction to how many people can say that, and as a reminder that good people can be made to do horrible things. He understood all too well that he was a victim on the Nazis and that he should do all he could to stop and prevent racism and authoritarianism in all its forms. Thank you all for the kind comments and not just jumping on me for admitting I have Nazi paraphernalia.
We have Nazi binoculars, but we also have a German bunker behind our house. It happens when you live in a formerly occupied area.
Not me. My parents growing up. They had an actual elephant foot turned into a table. Like an actual foot cut from an elephant and taxidermied made into an end table. Had a glass tabletop. You could feel the thin hairs on it. Effin' haunted my dreams, man.
Elephant foot furniture is more common than you think. A man trying to prove the Loch Ness Monster was real used his elephant foot umbrella vase to make footprints. A piece of irradiation bore drilled encased in resin. It has a cloud floating above it in the resin where the focal point is. It's safe now, bizarre to think about, and probably illegal as F for a civilian to acquire today.
I bought a used Bill Cosby comedy album on vinyl, and the next week everything started coming out about the horrible things he had done. Frowning face.
I have a Bill Cosby book, on parenting. No idea where it came from. Might have been a gag gift. Also found a Jim'll Fix It mug at the back of the cupboard. Jimmy Savile if you're not familiar with the show, case. Also some Gary Glitter vinyl. Should probably get rid of that stuff before I accidentally become a collector of pedophile memorabilia. I have a wood carving of a Peruvian warrior holding the head of a warrior he defeated, standing on the headless dead body.
A ceramic jar with cocaine written on it. My father is a contractor and he got it from a client who was descended from a relatively prominent US president. It was headed for the trash. My father didn't steal it, of course.
It's probably a pharmaceutical jar for a dentist office from back in the day. Cocaine was commonly used as an anesthetic, and came in ceramic jars like that.
It's not as fun an explanation as this prominent family using it for recreational purposes, but your post makes the most sense.
A packaged stick from Afghanistan that claims to cure all known illnesses, including cancer, if you rub it on you. I traded an energy drink for it. I think it's pretty controversial since I now own the cure for all ailments.
We're this far into the pandemic and you're only talking about it now? Whip that stick out.
9 inches angle grinder from Harbor Freight.
Jesus Christ. Do you have a good life insurance policy?
As a joke, I told my mom I wanted my dog's testicles in a jar after we had him neutered. She took it seriously and now I have had my dog's balls in a jar for almost a decade.
Did you at least let him lick the jar every now and then for old time's sake?
Now that I think about it, he does give them a certain look sometimes.
A big-ass swastika that was captured by a member of my family in Northern Africa during WW2.
My wedding ring, according to my mill.
Made me chuckle. Pest, hey Mill, im doin' your kid. K thanks bye. A file called Rule 34 inches filled with nothing but geography maps to hide the fact I make world maps for hours on end.
Dude, this is literally my hobby. I love making cool maps in my spare time on GIS, it's so fun.
A small diary, journal written in Japanese with small letters also in Japanese in it. My grandfather fought in WW2 in the Pacific. He gave the journal to my father before he died. He said it was from a Japanese officer that he killed. My father said he was very shaken and seemed deeply disturbed by the memory. He made my father promise that he would never look to return the journal to the family or try to look into it. My father has now passed and I have the journal. Creeps me out. WTF. Edit. Point 1. Never had a post with so many hits, thanks to all for your interest, and the jokes are hysterical. Lot of people asked what it says, I have no idea. It could be anything from a personal journal to a grocery list. I've never had it translated. I haven't had it out in years. I've always just kind of avoided it. Many years before my dad passed, I asked him if we should try to have it returned to the family, and he was uncharacteristically serious about no, as he promised his father. From what I understand, my grandfather was a cook with the Seabees. Forgive my military ignorance, I think that's the division's nickname, somewhere in the Pacific Theater. Something weird happened with this Japanese soldier, as my grandfather wasn't front-line type. My father said his dad always got real weird, freaked out about it. I probably should investigate and return it, but I've always been hesitant. BCA, it definitely feels like the start of a horror, revenge movie where I get some dude hunting me to avenge his grandpappy, and B. The whole awkwardness of, hi, how's Japan? I love sushi. BTW, my granddad killed and possibly tortured your granddad, here's some stuff he stole from him. But you have all inspired me to pull it out later and investigate. I will post a second update with more details or pics of it later after I get home from work. Edit 2, 8 PM 1.18.22. As promised, I got home from work and pulled everything out. Over time some of it has gotten mixed in with his other war stuff. I have a whole box of pics, newspapers, flags, etc., so it's hard to tell exactly what all went with the journals. But here's what I have with as much detail as I can provide. Journal 1, small, about the size of a pack of baseball cards, pages are lined like a notebook. The first 3 pages are written in handwriting, presumably Japanese. Very neat printing and held up well despite age. I will try Google Translate with a photo as some of you suggested and post if it works to translate any of it. Journal 2, slightly larger, leather-bound, printing on the cover in Japanese, embossed. Inside front cover is a map of the North America, South America, and Europe. Inside back cover map of Asia. Inside next page seems to have 4 printed photos, W Japanese printed words in middle. Photos of a bunch of men, W female dolls, a group praying to a bridge in the distance, a military lineup, and a pile of packages that look like shoebox sized. Next page printed Japanese writing large, like a title page. The next 5 pages have printed Japanese on them, not handwritten. A few pages look like a calendar. I'm guessing this was officially issued. The rest of this book is blank pages. Except tucked in between some pages is a torn piece of paper that has Japanese printing on it. Again, maybe a prayer. Tucked in one of the journals, now no longer in, were a bunch of small photos, size of a small post-it. Mostly military shots. Men in uniform. There are 3 that stand out. One is a family, 7 women, a baby and an older man. It has Japanese writing on back. Another is a close-up of a man in uniform, maybe the owner, and the third is of a Japanese man in a suit wearing eyeglasses. There is also a metal sign, all in Japanese writing, I assume, looks like it was ripped off of a wall of something. Then a few more harsh pics, doubt they were W. The journals originally, one of a bunker full of dead Japanese soldiers and one of an American GI barefoot holding a Japanese soldier's head. Back reads Vanza and head of Imperial Japanese Marine, note hole in Jap's head, Guadalcanal. The final piece seems to be a homemade picture album. About 20 pages, normal-sized paper, bound at the top with string, Japanese writing printed on cover, and a tab of paper taped on W Japanese handwriting. Inside are pages of small pictures taped with Japanese handwriting under each. I think it's handwriting at least, but it's so neatly written it's hard to tell. The photos appear mainly of military scenes. I think that's all that is related to the journals. Everything else seems to be newspapers and pictures of our GIs and my grandfather. I will try the Google Translate in the journals and post an update later again if that works. I will also try to figure out how to post a few pictures of the journals and stuff. Thanks again to everyone who commented and reached out, even those who seemed angry or pissed at me. I've really just tried not to think about the stuff BC of the promise my father made. I'll post another update. Edit 3, I cannot figure out how to post photos to this thread. If anyone can tell me how, please do. I won't post the severed head or dead body shots BC, those are pretty aggressive. Edit 4, final. Thanks for everyone's comments, posts, etc. Based on advice provided by some of you, I have reached out to the Oban Society, a not-for-profit that tries to reconnect personal materials from way to their owners. I have also provided some of the journal pages to someone who I hope can do some translation. Again, thanks to everyone who chimed in on both sides of the debate, and all the comedy.
At least have it translated.
A copy of the Anarchist's Cookbook.
I used to have that on floppy. Oh, the good old days when we thought that and Faces of Death were cool.
I have a BDSM picture of Jessica Rabbit signed by the woman who voiced her. Update, it's this image link.
A Nazi SS officer's dagger and a Hitler's youth ceremony bayonet. A friend gave them to me days before he died of cancer. They belonged to his dad. Edited answer some questions. 1. My friend couldn't speak too well by the time he gave me these. I don't necessarily know why he decided to pick me. 2. I have been trying to decide what to do with them. Donating is an option I have considered. 3. In our many conversations he had mentioned Ukraine and Yugoslavia at times as having been places his parents traveled through. 4. Having met his dad once, very briefly, before he died in 2005, I can honestly say it wouldn't come as any sort of shock to me to find out he was a Nazi. He seemed pretty grisly and stern. I just never considered the idea until the knives were given to me 4 years ago. 5. Paolo had no other family that he knew of left by the time he passed. He never cared to try to find any either. 6. If I had to guess why he married a Pole and waited to move was maybe she was a sympathizer and to avoid the rush to America. 7. He would have been too old to be Hitler Youth.
As in his dad was a Nazi?
Possibly, or maybe even probably. My friend never spoke much about his dad other than his parents were German and Polish respectively and they immigrated to the US by way of Brazil in the 50s. Holy poo, this comment took off asterisk.
Aleister Crowley's Key of Solomon. It's a book about summoning demons. It's just a curiosity piece.
Fun fact, I am related to Aleister Crowley, and if my maternal aunts are anything to go by, he did in fact succeed in summoning demons.
When my sister was in high school, she wrote letters to Charles Manson. He wrote her back. My dad intercepted the letters in the mail. He never opened them, but still has them. My sister never knew he wrote back. Edit to answer some questions asterisk. I can't believe I woke up this morning to this explosion. My sister is 7 years older. Mental health was left generally undiagnosed and untreated in the 80s. She was a rough kid to parent, and even as a sibling there's a lot of trauma stemming from her I've had to work through. I haven't spoken to her since I was in my 20s. She's estranged from my dad, my other sister, and I. She has worked her way back into my mum's life as she's gotten older, more than likely to benefit from her death. I do remember her being obsessed with Manson when I was a kid. She was a effing menace, constantly getting into some sort of trouble, running away, police calls, etc. As soon as she turned 18 she was kicked out. She turned 50 last month, and according to my mum, she finally has her life together. She bought her first house. My dad told me about the letters approximately a year ago. This happened 30 years ago. I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be any federal charges brought against him, haha, and he has no reason to make this up or lie about it. I told him I want them left to me in his will. To the people messaging me to buy the letters, big fat effing no. If and when I get them in my possession, I'll evaluate what I want to do with them at this time. I agree they're worth more sealed than opened.
What do you do when you find out your daughter gave your home address to Charles Manson?
Probably a small bone I lifted from a catacomb in Peru when I was younger. Technically I'm a grave robber and definitely getting haunted.
When I was a kid in holiday with my parents and sister, my sister and I found a bone in the bush behind the lodge we were staying at. I took it home, showed it around at school, and a classmate's father happened to work at a museum. She got her dad to look at it and he apparently got really pale and kinda stammered out, "Where did this come from?" It was apparently a tibia, human lower leg bone, and from the looks of it was probably a couple hundred years old. After further investigating, it was discovered that the land behind the lodge was, in fact, an ancient tribal burial ground. Some elders were consulted, and as it was taken innocently by a child, it could be returned to where I found it after being blessed by the elders.
A friend of mine spent a lot of time innocently learning how to make a noose. After he became proficient, he gave me one of his best, but small examples to remember him when I moved back to the USA. I thought hanging it from my rearview mirror would be cool, but I had moved to the south. Some of my minority friends later explained it to me.
Greater than I thought hanging it from my... Oh no. Greater than rear view mirror would be cool. Oh good. Greater than but I had moved to the south. Oh no.
An original Asteroids arcade machine. But my brother and I removed the original, burned-in, oscilloscope screen and replaced it with an LCD panel, replaced the controls with 6-button arcade fighter sticks, and hooked the whole thing up to a hacked Xbox with thousands of dumped ROMs on it. The original board was gone before we got the cab, donated to another machine that did have a working monitor. Controversial because some arcade historians would prefer to see these cabs preserved rather than hacked. But with a burned screen and no board, this cab was pretty useless.
As an arcade guy, I see why this is controversial. Those vector displays are getting harder and harder to find these days. While it's not quite as bad as gutting one of those, I have a centipede cabinet that I also swapped for an LCD, but it still has the original board. I don't like multicabs cause the appeal of arcades to me is the gigantic wooden box that is exclusively one game. Not that I'm against multicabs, they just aren't for me.
When we found the cab, the vector screen was toast and the game board was already transplanted onto another cab. But we probably could have donated the metal control panel, which was rust-free, but had a ton of chipped paint. We weren't the right guys to do the restoration work that would have been needed, but we did create a cabinet that has given us more than a decade of good times.
A Bengal tiger pelt. My wife is half Indian. A friend of her family died, and they found a tiger pelt in his belongings. He was early 80s and was born and raised in India before moving to my country, Canada. The estate was split in 3, so most everything had to be liquidated. Well, you can't sell tiger pelts here, and no museum or anything seemed to want it. So somehow I wound up with it. My wife's a vegetarian for ethical reasons. So naturally I was floored to bring it home. I'd never hunt an endangered species, and I'm firmly against hunting for sport. But I wasn't going to let it get thrown in the trash.
A very, very large dildo. Like, unreasonably large. My friend had it sent to me as a joke on a random day for no reason at all. Spent $300 for the sake of a joke. I was like, bro, something is very wrong with you, lol. Edit. In the interest of not repeating myself a bunch more, it is a replica of the Moby Huge dildos owned by Charles White, Moist CR1 Teakle, Penguins 0. It is not an official Moby Huge from Adam and Eve as they cost around $1,400, however, it is a to-scale replica that my friend commissioned for me. It's semi-hollow and it's made of a much lighter material, it weighs around 30 pounds rather than 70 to 80. I'm not sure who or where he got it from because he wouldn't tell me at the time as he thought I'd do the same to him, but I'll ask again since it's been a while and tell him it's for Reddit. I will leave a link to a Twitter post showing 2 of them, one of which is next to a 5'6" cutout. I'm away from home for a few days, but I'll do my best to keep the giant penis at the front of my mind so I can share a pic for you lovely folks when I'm back. Link.
If friend isn't married, give it to the motherfucker as a wedding present. Like at the wedding, make sure everyone sees.
I very much like the way you think.
Crocs.
One of those toddler leashes, lol.
A switch knife. Technically one with a blade as long as mine is illegal in my area. I don't know, I would rather have it and risk the misdemeanor than not have it with me.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.